Put them in.
All right, well, let me wish everyone a good morning. Welcome to the monthly virtual membership meeting for CASH. I'm Jeff Becker, your CASH chair, and let me also wish you all Happy New Year. This is our first meeting of 2023. The time just keeps moving forward, and we've got some exciting things for the new year, and we'll hear some great updates today. So again, welcome everybody. If you are a first-time attendee, feel free to drop your name in the chat box and make sure you're messaging everyone in the meeting. That way we can all see it and give you a special welcome and thank you for joining us today. And also remember that you are muted, but we do want to hear your thoughts on and comments and questions. So feel free to drop those in the chat box. We just ask that people refrain from any marketing activities not necessarily related to the conversation today. So appreciate your cooperation with that. And with that, if we could move to the next slide, just a few announcements. We have a web shop coming up tomorrow, and I don't want to let all the good news out of the bag because we have great updates we'll hear from later today, but on the governor's budget and the federal funding issues with all the stimulus money as well as local funding issues. So you make sure you check that out. You can register on the CASH website. You can find the full description of the web shop there as well. Again, tomorrow, 10 a.m. to noon. So make sure that you check that out, please. And next slide. All right, so we're going to jump into our state updates. Our first presenter is John Gordon. John is with the California Department of Education and has been with us numerous times. So John, why don't you come on up, and thank you very much for being with us. I know that you've been busy at CDE with a lot of activities, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good, happy new year. I know much the state was pounded with rain at the beginning of the year. We have been working, our emergency services team has been working with some school districts as it relates to flooding. And with that, I want to remind you, there are some, we posted a couple, I think at least one new resource that you can find on flooding or flood planning. If you go to our CDE website, type in the search school flood, you'll see that page and all the various resources. So I encourage districts to check that out. As of really into the fall and beginning of this year, we had a couple of staff changes. So please check out our website, check out the webpage, just to make sure we've had some shift. Rob Corley is no longer with us. I've moved over in that territory and will probably be there for the better part of this year. We'll be working with staff to assign projects as I have done in the past when I've had Southern California. I moved Angel Dottie down to Orange, San Bernardino, Riverside, Imperial County, those Southern California counties, and then Haley Lake Elmo, formerly known as Haley Jensen, now has a territory down in the Central Valley. So feel free to reach out to them. We will all be at CASH. So at the CASH conference, I understand they're bringing back the resources table. And so what we will be doing is having office hours. So we will post in our area the various times where the field reps will be there. So if you want to drop in, either say hello, maybe you have a project you want to talk about, something you want to catch up on, there will be dedicated times that our field reps will be there. So you're not trying to chase them throughout the conference. So feel free to check that out at the CASH conference. We're also doing 4 different workshops related. So some of it is related to all access restrooms. We're doing a mini workshop on that, as well as participating and supporting another workshop. And then I'm also doing a workshop as it relates to state agencies and partnerships, the, getting to us early so we can get your projects moving much faster. We have the general Department of Education workshop. So check that out if you are coming to the CASH conference. So you know a little bit more about that and attending that. And I think the last thing I want to mention is that the Office of Public School Construction and the Department of Education have kind of combined, and we're trying to do this thing called virtual office hours. So the first one will be on February 1st. I believe I want to say it's 11 o'clock. We have the Zoom link and the invitation on the OPSC website. If you go to their meetings page, that's typically the page where you will see the SAB binder, for instance. We're creating an environment to where both agencies are in the room at one time. Right now, there really isn't a structure. If you have just really any questions, I've asked our emergency services team to also be there. Come pop on in on the Zoom link, and you can engage in a conversation, whether you need to speak to OPSC, NCD at the same time about a particular project. However we can help, we're just trying to provide more resources. So again, check that out. We're looking to do that once a month. I'm sure OPSC may be bringing this up as well when they have their update, and looking forward to engaging with folks more so this year. So outside of that, I think that's long and short of it for the moment. Not sure if there's any questions.
Hey, John, that's a lot. And, as a county office person, I just want to give a tip of the hat to Joe and Jake in your emergency response area. They did a great job during the storms of keeping us all communicating. And, maybe it was a lot of practice for maybe a more severe event that we hopefully don't have in the future, but it was good work by them.
Absolutely. And working, obviously around the clock. I know that they were down in Merced County, Alvin School District down there, and continue to work with other districts as things come up.
Yeah. A question for you, John, on the office hours. Is that like you would just go into a breakout room with your project manager as needed once you're in the Zoom?
That is my understanding. I think Barbara Kampminer and I had this idea, but that's as good as maybe I got on my end. We're learning as we go. So it's more of a, if you have a question and it's related to us, it could be that you're going into a breakout room. It could be that we're answering, those generally on the spot. We're gonna build it as we're flying, so to speak.
All right.
Jeff, if I could interrupt, John, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Your agency, of course, has been point on ESSER funds. So just a quick question. Are you aware of any audits commencing on ESSER funds at this point in time?
I am not. And I have to really check with my colleagues up in governmental relations who are running the ESSER, overseeing the ESSER funds, but I'm not familiar with that and haven't heard within my group of any audits. Have you?
Rumors, only rumors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, let's not start rumors. Thank you, John, for joining us. Always a good update from you.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you at future meetings and seeing you at the annual conference as well.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right. Thanks, John. All right. So next up, we have Lisa Silverman with the Office of Public School Construction. So Lisa, good to see you with us. I know it's a busy day. You've got SAB this afternoon.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, Happy New Year, folks. Looking forward to continue to process these grant applications. And obviously we all saw a snippet of the governor's proposed budget. And so, yeah, we'll be, I'm sure, pretty busy during the legislative season as well. And yeah, as far as today's board, I know John actually touched on this, but I think our first office hours starts actually February 3rd. So yeah, and we will be having potential opportunities for breakout rooms. So again, the goal is to, just to get to know our customers and see how we can provide some solutions oriented to whatever challenges they may have related to a project, funding, or just general questions about compliance or how to navigate our online system. So again, we want to be there to support everybody, and then happy to partner with CDE as well. I know John touched on it as well. I mean, I myself and some other staff members have been really busy working on or supporting districts during these challenging times as we relates to floods and recent earthquakes. And so with that, we're happy that we're partnering with districts, and then to that extent, yeah, we're actually reaching out as much as we can, and then trying to, again, try to navigate through our process, whether or not they have eligibility for the normal program, or even eligibility for seismic, or even extensive facility hardship grants as well. So we've been involved with Rio Dell and Planada and some other districts that have had encountered some recent flooding. My apologies, my home phone is ringing, which is not expected, but give me a few seconds. And there we go. Yeah, I know for the board item tonight, I know we're all waiting for the construction cost index to post, and our apologies. I know we've been working extensively with RS Means, and I understand we have the data set now, and we're working tirelessly to get this item up and posted. And so I appreciate your patience. And again, our goal is to present that information today to the board, so they have the ability to adopt what those changes are. And at this point, I don't even know what those changes are because we're still working on the numbers. And to that extent, yeah, we look forward to participating cash and being part of the resource room. And I think we have about 3 days of the resource rooms available, and looking forward to partnering and providing education with our topics that are hot and heavy, with the new opening of the full day kinder filing round. So we're excited about that. February 1st and closes March 2nd. So again, we're looking forward to folks applying for the program and accessing the program cash. And that is $350 million. So let's get this out. To that extent, I'll open up to any questions.
All right, thank you, Lisa, for that. And I just want to note, John Gordon did drop the link to the office hours into the chat box, so you can grab that link there if you're interested in that. And February 3rd is the date there. So appreciate you being with us in advance, Lisa. Looking forward to the SAB, and we'll keep an eye out for the CCI item posting shortly, and looking forward to seeing that item. So I'm checking the chat as we're talking here, so I'm trying to multitask, but I think we covered everything. Tom or Alan, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Lisa while we're here?
No, Jeff, I was also checking the chat box for any particular questions, but I just take a moment to thank Lisa and her staff for continuing to be a partner as we move forward. And, you know, we similarly anxiously await to see the agenda for the SAB meeting, and what some of those cost increases that we're all struggling with is going to look like. So, but thank you for you and your staff and all the great work that you do.
And Lisa, we do look forward to that CCI information, and our members do. I appreciate you focusing in on that. Thank you.
Yeah, we want to definitely put that out there as quickly as possible, because, you know, and don't want to delay it. So again, it's really vital for everyone to see their construction projects get that cost increase. And as you'll see in this agenda, it was definitely light of project grant approvals, because we want to ensure that once the board does adopt the construction cost index, and then we can bring those projects forward in January with the elevated cost increases. And I'm sure it's going to be elevated, because we all know we've been dealing with inflation. So looking forward to presenting a larger consent agenda for January and February projects.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being with us and taking.
And sorry for the calls, and I can ping my husband later about these calls.
You're obviously very important and in demand, Lisa. We
Well, have a good
appreciate that. All right. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move next into our legislative, regulatory, and maintenance network updates. And we have our trio of great advocates, Nancy Charas Espinosa, Rebecca Colleen, and Ian Padilla with us. Nancy is going to start us off, and I think we've got some good things to share in this area. So Nancy, I will turn it to you.
Thank you, Jeff. I hadn't planned to address this, but I feel like now I should ask Lisa if she is interested in extending her car warranty after hearing the phone ring in the background. It's probably what it was. So I will be happy to kick off our group update for you all today. Good afternoon. I'm going to start off talking a little bit about the legislative landscape because there's been so much change in that environment. I want to tell you a little bit about it. So in the November 22 election, 32 new legislators came in. One is a returnee. So 32 of 120, that's over 25% turnover of the Senate and Assembly combined. So what that means for us is it's a tremendous opportunity, and it's also a big lift in terms of member education. There are always folks who come in with a connection to education, but those are a minority. So what we have been doing is doing meet and greets with any of these 32 who are willing to meet with us. And providing them an overview, well, an introduction to cash and an overview of school facilities in California, just kind of, high level, the lay of the land, what the funding sources are, who the players are, and we also give them a preview of the issues that they will face in the next year or so. So those have been incredibly fruitful, valuable. It's really nice to see folks who either do come in with some knowledge and experience on the issue, kind of cue that up to do this job. And it's also really rewarding to see the folks who think they don't really have any experience that's relevant and then start to see the connections that they do have, like say they're really passionate about, athletic facilities or things like that. And we start to help them understand what the nexus is with school facilities. So that is ongoing. I of course hope to have most of those wrapped up before the end of January, but we are at the mercy of the availability of these very busy folks. So we will take them whenever we can get them, but we are trying to do them as soon as possible. So I mentioned tremendous turnover, right? Over 25%. There's actually a little bit more potentially on the horizon, given the speculation that U.S. Senator Feinstein will not seek re-election or potentially could be challenged next time. And there are folks who are already running for that seat. The reason that affects the legislature is because of the trickle-down effect, right? But there is at least one state assembly member who has already said that he would be interested in running for Congress. So he would leave his assembly seat if a certain congressional seat, someone who's interested in moving up to the U.S. Senate becomes available. So those are things that are kind of always on the horizon. With respect to the calendar and what the legislature is actually doing right now, so at the beginning of the year, January 4th, they convened for the start of their 2-year legislative session. And they are working now on developing, individually each office, their package of legislation. And we're in conversation with many of them, both as a resource and in terms of, things that we might want to advance. And the deadline for introducing bills for most folks, there are a couple of exceptions, but generally is mid-February. I think it's February 17th. Shortly after that, really early March to mid-March, depending on the committee, is when bill hearings begin. And that will kind of dominate the work of the legislature through the end of session in mid-September. So those of you who noted and may have wondered what I meant by a 2-year session, so there is a 2-year session and there's a 1-year session. So the legislature holds 2-year sessions, meaning if your bill does not get through all of the hoops it needs to get through in the first year, you could park it, designate it a 2-year bill, use the additional time to continue working on it, working with opposition, whatever the issue, and then continue to move it in the second year. So that is something that, you only have that option in the first year of a 2-year session. In the second year, if it doesn't meet its deadlines, it's definitely dead. But they still take a break after September, between September and January, to go back and focus on their districts. I want to queue up a little bit of the budget conversation. I'm just going to do a high-level overview, and then Rebecca's going to go into the details about school facilities program and TK and other issues. So concurrent with the work the legislature is doing on the legislative side with bills, they are also doing the state budget development work. On January 10th, the governor proposed the 2023-24 state budget. That's the constitutional deadline for him to share his proposal with the legislature. This time it was a $297 billion total budget, $223.6 billion general fund. He is as of that date was forecasting a 22.5 billion shortfall, but that figure will continue to evolve as, for example, I think we just closed a big week for state tax collection. So maybe in the next week or so, we'll get another revision of that, and it will continue to be revised really through April. And those April numbers are what will be used to inform the May revision and really kind of the most trued up estimates of what will become the basis of the budget that's passed in June. So the governor, because he forecasts this shortfall, proposes a combination of funding delays, shifts, actual reductions, plus something that they're calling trigger reductions, or I think the LAO calls them trigger restorations. They're the same thing. They are a reduction that comes with a plan B or sometimes a plan C, right? They say we are going to reduce this. However, if this other source of funding materializes, we are going to restore it from that source of funding. Most often in this budget, that other source of funding is federal funds for which California is eligible and we could receive. We just don't know yet if we are going to receive them. There are 18 billion in actual reductions in the governor's proposal. The rest is shifts. The Legislative Analyst's Office is advising the state legislature to actually identify additional reductions above that. And, you know, the legislature doesn't have to take all of the governor's kind of menu of options, that they are going to be discussing those in the next few months. And they will find some that they can live with, and they will find others that they need to replace. So that's what the work is that really has already commenced. The Senate Budget Committee began its work last week on Wednesday, and the Assembly Budget Committee begins, I think, next week on Wednesday. They meet first their full committee, and then they divide up. They all have various subcommittees to examine their respective parts of the budget. And that's where they really get down to, as it's kind of a granular a level as they can, soliciting more information from the administration on its proposals, developing, you know, their own proposals. All of that work will go on through May, and as I mentioned, kind of get trued up. So in May 14th is the constitutional deadline for the governor to provide his revised proposal, right? We call it the May revision. So he's going to provide an updated budget proposal to the legislature, always on my birthday, always appreciated, May 14th. And the budget deadline, the constitutional deadline by which the legislature must approve a budget is June 15th. Fortunately or unfortunately, the practice in recent years has been that they technically meet that deadline, but in substance, there's a great deal to be there's a great deal of work to be done after the fact. So what we anticipate is that the legislature will meet that June 15th deadline. There will be some useful information for us, but most of the information that we need may continue to be worked on for another couple of months. They really have, I mean, technically they will take the end of session to continue working on trailer bills, but the primary work of, you know, the core budget bill juniors, that as they call them, will probably take another couple of months after that deadline. They are cognizant of the fact that the rest of government, our school districts who don't have these extensions, are waiting on that information so that we could plan our following year. So that is all that I have. And Rebecca, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Nancy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the school facility program and school facilities proposals that the governor included in his budget, and a little bit about state school bond as well. I do want to encourage folks to attend the CASH web shop tomorrow. Nancy, Ian, and I are going to go into even more detail on the state budget proposal, the school bond, and legislative issues. So I'm previewing something that I'm sure Jeff will encourage you all to do, but please join us tomorrow for that session. On the budget, just to kind of pick up where Nancy left off, the education budget is a really interesting place to be working right now. The Prop 98 budget proposal essentially fully funds schools. So there's not a cut really that's associated with the Prop 98 operational funds for schools. We find ourselves working in the school facility space with a lot of interest in the non-Prop 98 side of the budget, right? So those are, that's spending outside of the constitutionally protected and guaranteed funding that schools receive for their operations. We had a couple of general fund commitments that had been made for school facilities in the last couple years. One of those is our school facility program commitment, where the governor and the legislature in prior budgets said school facilities is important and we're going to provide $4.2 billion in general funds. So that's in addition to Prop 51 bond proceeds over 3 years for school facilities. And we're already spending that initial commitment of $1.3 billion that we received in the 22-23 fiscal year. In the January budget proposal, the governor did make a small modification to what has been promised for future years. He is proposing to reduce the 23-24 budget allocation by $100 million. So going from $2.1 billion to $2 billion general fund for school facility program projects. Now for cash, you know, this is something that we obviously don't want to see reductions. These are all important projects. This is all critical for our schools. We already have a backlog that is being generated. But we took it as a positive signal to see that the governor didn't propose more when we're going into a period of time where he is trying to solve a $22.5 billion budget problem and only suggesting a relatively small reduction to the SFP. That was really positive for us to see. Cash is going to be asking for restoration to that full $2.1 billion in the 23-24 fiscal year if the revenues do allow in May and June. On the flip side, there is a proposal related to the preschool TK full day kindergarten facilities grant program that is, Nancy talked about a couple of those different tactics that are being used in the budget. Rather than a straight cut, the governor is saying for this program, he wants to delay funding that had been promised in 23-24. So we've got over $1 billion that's been committed to this TK facilities grant program over 3 years. And in the fiscal year 23-24, the budget that we're working on now, $550 million general fund had been promised to schools for these important facilities projects. The governor is saying, well, we don't have the dollars to support that this year, so I want to delay all $550 million to the 24-25 fiscal year, so a 1-year delay. That is fairly consistent with where the governor has been in his position on transitional kindergarten facilities. That has not been his top priority. That priority has really been driven by the legislature. And so we're hoping that in this budget process, the legislature can push back on that a little bit and say, you know, facilities are really important for the implementation of transitional kindergarten. If we're going to hit full implementation by 25-26, delaying this by a year could have detrimental effects to getting there. So cash is going to be asking to keep that funding commitment and to not delay the TK facilities funding. We will keep you posted as we hear more information about how the legislature is reviewing the governor's budget and how revenues are looking as the reports are coming in between now and June. Really, there's a lot up in the air. And those two general fund proposals for school facilities, remember, they're on the non-Prop 98 side of the budget. And so we will be competing with other priorities that are important to legislators and the governor that are outside of education education, such as health and human services programs. This also connects to a really exciting update that we have today. You probably saw the news that we have a new state school bond bill. So that is AB 247. And at a time when we're questioning whether the full commitments to school facility program dollars will be able to be maintained because of the volatility of our tax structure and our revenues, it can increase the pressure for the need for that consistent funding source of a bond that we can plan over a number of years. So we're really excited to be working with 3 co-authors on this new bond bill. That is Assemblymember Maritsuchi, who is the chair of the Assembly Education Committee, brand new chair that we're going to be working with. Assemblymember Mike Fong, who's the chair of the Higher Education Committee in the Assembly, and Lori Wilson, who is also one of their Assembly colleagues. The bill itself is pretty straightforward, and it looks a lot like Proposition 51, which was passed in 2016. So very straightforward. It's a K through 14, so K through 12 and community colleges bond. It does not specify a dollar amount. It does not specify which of the ballots in 2024 the bond would be placed on. So it could be primary, it could be general in November. It does say that the K-12 programs that are intended to be funded is for new construction, modernization, charter, and CTE. Now, this is really just a starting point and kicks off negotiations between legislators, stakeholders, schools. We need to see what voters are interested in funding, what the needs for schools are, and what the priorities of all these different groups are. So if you don't hear your favorite program or type of project in that list, this isn't final. This is really the starting point of a very complex system of conversations to get us to a final bond to place that on the ballot before voters. So we're really excited to be kicking off that conversation with new leadership in the legislature and educating a lot of new folks. Nancy mentioned all of those new members about the importance of school facilities. There is one other bond, SB 28 Glazer, that has been introduced. Just a quick point on that cash does not support SB 28. It is a reintroduction of the failed Proposition 13 from March of 2020 that does have some provisions in it that we remain concerned about, but that will be part of the constellation here as negotiations are moving forward. And SB 28, one key difference between that and AB 247 is that it includes UC and CSU, so it provides a vehicle for them to have a seat at the table as negotiations heat up. Long tail on this, right? So this is the very beginning of that 2-year process that Nancy mentioned. If we're aiming for a 2024 bond, then that gives us this year in 2023 to really start having these detailed conversations. And we will keep you posted as that happens. Also join us tomorrow at the web shop. We're going to dive into even more detail on the behind the scenes and what's happening with this bond. And then I have one last thing that I want to mention before inviting Ian up, and that is we are looking at a possible bill to extend the K-12 design build statutory authorization. So that's expiring in 2 years, so we've got time, but really we're looking for folks out there who are using design build with K-12 projects who are enjoying the use of that, would like to continue to be able to do that. Feel free to send me a message or an email. I'll put my email in the chat. We're talking to legislators about the importance of extending the statutory authority and then possibly even removing the sunset so that it becomes a permanent option for us moving forward. And this is part of the education effort, is matching up districts that are using a great tool like Design Build to their new legislators and helping us to tell the story about why this is important. So I'll put my contact information in the chat and look forward to connecting with you if you are working with or are using Design Build. So thank you so much. And I will invite my colleague Ian to come up and give you a little bit of insight on some of the bills and proposals that we're already hearing in the legislature. And I see Jeff too.
Yeah. Hi, Rebecca. And Ian, can I just jump in and make an interjection? You know, Kim made a comment to us panelists regarding the backlog of projects and the how that interacts with budget funding as well as bond funding. And we've always said that we need a sustainable funding source that provides planning certainty, meaning hey, it needs to be a multi-year funding source that's not subject to the changes that happen in the budget negotiation process, as we're already seeing with what was just recommended in last year's budget. So we certainly love getting money from the general fund to help us catch up, and certainly for me, that's a priority that we get caught back up, because that creates equity across the program and we don't have long delays in the funding. So yes, there is a big backlog, and it's going to take, I think, the multi-track approach that we've been talking about to get back on track where we have a current funding program.
And Jeff, that's a really great question. Just to add to that, I agree with everything that you said. If your district submits an application to the school facility program today, all dollars have been spoken for. So bond dollars, as well as best case scenario, we get all of that general fund money that's been promised to us. We now do not have an additional funding source to fund new applications for new construction or modernization that are submitted today. So that is really why we see this bond as being so important, that we already have a backlog, even if all those promised commitments come through.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So Ian, why don't you talk to us about the maintenance world?
All right. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Rebecca and Nancy. Those are good updates. And I'll throw my hat in, of course, on the bond legislation. Very excited to have that introduced and begin having that broad conversation about a needed bond. So very much looking forward to that. So so what I'm going to talk about a little bit, and Nancy did a nice setup in terms kind of where we are in the legislative process. Early, still introducing bills and so on. So I wanted to give you a little sense of kind of some of the things that we're doing right now as bills are introduced. Basically, the best thing that we can do as advocates is talk to folks on the front end before bad bills are introduced or that can't be improved or amended. So we're doing a lot of meeting with legislative staff on legislative ideas they have. And a lot of them, of course, are familiar to CASH members. Security, safety. There's a member interested in looking at what we call the locks bill. Again, you remember those for those who follow this. There's been very many of those introductions, but giving some of the things that are going on, increased interest in that. Again, air quality, that shouldn't surprise anybody. We haven't seen anything yet, but there are folks talking about that. So again, trying to work with folks on the front end of the legislative process. One bill that I will call out to you is AB 249 by Assembly Member Holden. And this has to do, again, with water quality in schools, testing, new standards for triggering testing, things like that. So that was introduced a few days ago. Really, we're taking a look at that, and but we know that could have wide implications for the school facilities community. It's a serious measure. It's sponsored by the Environmental Working Group. And so they're a serious organization that does a lot of focus on air quality. And so we'll be working with them, with the author, and with other stakeholders on this bill. And we'll let you know more about it. And again, I'll make my pitch tomorrow. I'll get into the bill a little bit more tomorrow at our workshop. We'll have some more time, as well as during the CASH annual conference. So stay tuned for that. But there are daily, there's more and more bills, and we're getting more calls from legislative staffers, and we appreciate being able to do this, running some of their ideas by us that affect school facilities. So it's good news, but it's a lot of talking with folks on the front end about bill ideas. So we'll keep you up to date on that as bills are introduced. But of course, at the CASH annual conference, at the Legislative Advisory Committee will highlight a lot of the bills that will be significant, as well as have a deeper discussion about the school bond bill and other capital issues, school capital issues. So that's kind of where we are on legislation. Early, but kind of putting in our work at the front end. So stay tuned on that. The other piece I wanted to talk to you about is the CalShape program. A lot of you know this is the third year of the program. Originally $600 million for HVAC assessments and upgrades, as well as school plumbing. 25% of the funding, some folks forget, was for school plumbing upgrades as well. About $300 million over the last 3 years was used for project, which is good news, but about $350 is still available. And so the CEC is in the process of trying to make some changes to the program, some improvements, so more districts will be able to use the funding. So this Thursday, they have a deadline for a public comment letter on the CalShape program, and they have a series of specific questions. So Cash, we've done a joint letter with Cash and the School Energy Coalition, which we'll post as soon as it's officially submitted, which gives you a sense of some of the concerns that we have and how the CalShape program we think can be improved. More important, or as important as I think as the current funding available and making that more accessible, is the CalShape program is the first real policy statement on schools and HVAC and those pieces. So the policy made here and the efforts that we make now are important, because this policy will live beyond the official CalShape program and funding, I believe. Commissioner McAllister did say that their idea is that to improve the program and to look for more funding as it does eventually run out. So I wanted to let folks know that there is funding available. The CEC is working to improve the program. I want to kind of put a pin in two important issues that are being discussed in the CalShape discussion, and that is the state requirement for electric HVAC equipment, that it's a state priority and it's in the building code. And so that's quite a new change. And we've heard from a lot of folks that, in some areas that will be difficult, there will be a cost impact. And we're bringing all of those issues up, basically saying that we understand the state priority to do that, but we want to make sure that there's funding available and that we have an efficient program that allows districts to access funding and address issues that are identified on these assessments and so on. So, and the last thing I'll say about that is, and we're pleased about this, we have 4 CEC staff coming to the Cash Annual Conference specifically. They'll be speaking at the Cash Maintenance Network mini workshop on Thursday at 10. So there's some opportunity to go directly in front of them. Also, I've invited them to be keynote speakers at our Cash Maintenance Breakfast on the Friday of the last day of conference. So that all this will be available on our website, and you'll be getting updates on it and so on. But wanted to let folks know that they're very interested, the CEC, in reaching out to districts, letting folks know how you apply, and also hearing your ideas about some of these issues and how their proposals affect you. How do you think the program could be improved? And so it's an opportunity to do that as well as, of course, to see if you qualify for funding. So good news pretty much all around. But again, the use of electric HVAC equipment, and also the requirement for CO2 monitors, which is not the CEC's requirement, but in their program, it requires compliance with the existing building code and so on. And so the requirement for CO2 monitors is kind of wrapped up in this discussion. So 2 pieces there, in addition to the funding that are being discussed, that affect maintenance operations and facilities greatly. So we're glad that they'll be at the conference and interested in talking to folks and hearing from you. So I think with that, I've said a lot this morning. Again, hope you're able to join us tomorrow. We'll dig deeper into some of the legislative, budget, and state bond issues, and then at the conference as well. So looking forward to that. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thank you, all of you, Nancy, Rebecca, and Ian. And I just want to point out, I want to affirm the good work that staff has done to be the go-to people and building those relationships with new members. That's a heavy lift in this time where not everyone is back in person in the same way. So just commendable work by all of our advocates with cash, and appreciate you all very much.
Yeah, Jeff, I just wanted to take a little moment and congratulate Rebecca and acknowledge Rebecca. She broached the subject in the chat box. So congratulations, Rebecca. She has a new name, but she's the same great advocate that's been working with us for many years. So congratulations and acknowledging the excitement for Rebecca. So thank you.
Nice. Yep.
All right.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Alan, and best wishes, Rebecca. All right, let's move on. Let me bring Nancy Chavez Espinosa back up for a quick update on the School Energy Coalition. Nancy's making her way back here in Zoom land. So Nancy, how about updating us on energy stuff? NEM 3.0, anybody?
Just that little thing. Happy to be here to provide an update. So first, I'll backtrack a little bit. I talked about the budget and the cash update. The budget was mostly silent on the issues that we watch for SEC. The majority of the trigger reductions, those reductions that they said we want to kind of reinstate this funding from a different source if it materializes. The biggest category where they use that was kind of in that environmental climate adaptation sector. And the governor said that the reason for that was because it was just such a big chunk of money, right? That it essentially had to share the pain, I think is what he was saying. But they do have, a plan B and a plan C in many cases in terms of how they want to restore that. One specific item that we are watching there is a 9% proposed reduction to EV bus funding. But we are awaiting additional detail from the Department of Finance to really understand how they plan to implement that. A 9% reduction, kind of like Rebecca said, with respect to the SFP dropping down from 2.1 billion to 2, it could have been much worse. We will certainly advocate for restoration if the revenues materialize, by the May revision. But it is not a terrible outcome. So we are grateful for that. With respect to NEM 3.0, as Jeff mentioned, so the PUC's NEM 3.0 ruling, which was very much not what we wanted, did set aside a couple of kind of smaller sub-programs, the virtual NEM, VNEM, which is largely used in multifamily housing, and NEM-A, the aggregate program. The NEM-A program is one that is commonly used by schools. So what the last ruling said is we're going to create a different proceeding on just these two programs because we're not sure that we have enough information about them. So SEC is going to follow this proceeding. What this means is that for the time being, we estimate maybe the next year to year and a half until this proceeding concludes. Schools that have more than 1 meter or get more than 1 meter prior to April 14th of this year still can operate in that NEM 2.0 framework. For those who have only 1 meter, that option is no longer available. So if you have only 1 meter and you would like to be grandfathered into NEM 2.0, you need an interconnection agreement filed. There's a receipt you get that confirms that you submitted your application. It says deemed complete. That's what you need by April 14th. Or you can also install a second meter prior to that date to qualify under NEM-A. There are some differences in those options, so I'd encourage you to look closely at them. The grandfathering timelines differ, so please examine those options closely. In the meantime, SEC will be involved in this secondary proceeding that I mentioned, and we will keep you posted. So please follow SEC for more on that. And that's all I have, Jeff.
All right, thanks a lot, Nancy. That the NEM issue certainly is complicated, but important to school districts to make our projects financially viable and move us towards sustainability. So really appreciate the work on that. All right, let's move on. Ian, do we have a Californians for School Facilities update? I've got you next on the agenda. Ian's scrambling for the button.
I'm scrambling to get back. No, I'm here. I don't have one today, but I am organizing a meeting at the annual conference, which we'll get more information about. But I will say, without touching bases with folks, we are still continuing to dive into the, we call it the IRA, but the Inflation Relief Act, right? A lot of these issues that we're talking about, there's funding available for that. So that's that'll be one of the major issues that we'll focus on. But so stay tuned for that. Nothing today, nothing brand new.
Yeah,
Ian, if I could just add,
Sure.
we will have Bob Canavan, who represents California for School Facilities, with us tomorrow at the Cash Web Shop, and he will give us an update of what's happening at the federal level.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I was glad to see that, and I'm looking forward to that myself for all these reasons. Just quickly, that water bill that I talked about, AB 249, I noticed that there's funding in there, but they tie it to that funding. So that's an interesting little legislative piece of kind of more on that. But I noticed that, and that's significant, and probably not the only time it's going to be done. So again, federal stuff, very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great to have Bob with us, and he does a good job of feeding us information on all of the stimulus funding, and I know districts are really trying to work hard and diligently to spend that money by the time frame specified in each act. So making sure that we stay on the right side of any federal requirements. It's always great to have Bob and get information from him. So looking forward to having him with us tomorrow.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. All right, well, in case you haven't heard, we've got an annual conference coming up very shortly. And so Alan's done a great job working with the entire team, with the planning committee and staff on organizing this. So Alan, I'll let you give us an update.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's as I look at my calendar, it's literally 4 weeks from today, almost to the minute. The dates are February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. So if you haven't already registered for this event and are going to attend, then shame on you, because there's still opportunities to register. The trade show floor is sold out. All of our wonderful workshops have all been set. And all of that information is available for you on our Cash website. So please take a look at that. Register if you haven't already done so. And there is some extremely limited room for rooms in the area. Most of the hotels are sold out. There's just a very limited number of rooms that are available. As I said, our trade show floor is sold out. There are still some very limited sponsorship opportunities for those partnering firms that are out there that would like to get involved with our conference and be a sponsor. Other than that, we're excited. I want to take a moment and I want to thank all the hard work for all of the conference strand chairs and co-chairs and all the moderators and presenters that are putting a lot of hard work into ensuring that our workshops and our professional development and the opportunities that we provide our membership are the most robust and best in the industry. So looking forward to kicking off the event. It's going to be a really great conference, and looking forward to seeing each and every one of you there. We do have a little later today, if you are one of our chairs, we do have our last conference planning committee meeting a little bit later this afternoon. So if you're a chair, feel free to jump into that, and we'll talk through some of the last minute details. But other than that, just about 4 weeks from today, we will be kicking off the conference in Sacramento.
All right, thanks a lot, Alan, and everybody that's put in tons of hard work on this. I know it's going to be a great conference as usual, and bigger than ever. So thank you very much, Alan.
Absolutely.
All right, we're on the home stretch here. So job exchange and people's choice. there's an opportunity that we all have as members to list opportunities for RFPs, RFQs, and positions on the CASH website. So please take advantage of that. If you do have an opening, you can reach a much broader audience than maybe just in your local vicinity. And you see some of the openings that we have there and opportunities. So do take advantage of that. You can again access that through the CASH website, and if you need any assistance, just reach out to any of us and we'll point you in the right direction in getting those opportunities posted there. Again, you can reach a much broader group of folks. And checking the chat one last time. So let me close just by saying that this is my last annual monthly membership meeting as chair, and it has certainly been a privilege to lead this group and this organization. And it's my hope that it's been good leadership and we move forward, I think, on a lot of important issues. And I'm excited for the work to come and being involved, but just wanted to express thanks to all the membership that joined us here today for your support during my time leading the organization, and wish everybody a great day and looking forward to being together at the annual conference.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the leadership over the last couple of years and looking forward to a great conference.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.